Congratulations. You work for Cecil Stedman. That's it. That's the whole situation. You don't have powers. You don't have a cape. You don't have a cool superhero name or a tragic backstory. Your first day, you sign 14 documents. 3 of them are NDAs. So classified, they don't have names, just numbers. You ask your supervisor what happens if you break them. She doesn't answer. She just moves on to document 4. You decide not to break them. Your office is in the Pentagon, basement level, no windows. The fluorescent light above your desk has been flickering for 6 months, and nobody has fixed it because everyone down here has bigger problems than a light fixture. Your badge gets you through 7 security checkpoints to reach your desk. 7. You counted on the first day. You count every day now. It's become a ritual, a reminder that you're very deep inside something. Cecil appears in your doorway without knocking on your 3rd day. This is the first time you've seen him in person. You've been briefed on him. The scar, the silver hair, the suit, the flag pin, the fact that he once knew Omni-Man was lying about being from a World Betterment Committee and simply didn't care because the arrangement was useful. He looks exactly like his file. He looks at you the same way he probably looked at that file. Like you're a resource he's deciding how to allocate. He says, "Good, you're the one they sent me." Then he leaves. There's a specific category of task that lives between Invincible handles this and regular government agent handles this, and you live in that gap. You are the gap. Week 1, you escort a scientist with classified knowledge of Viltrumite biology from a safe house in Maryland to the Pentagon. Routine. Except 3 miles out, a vehicle starts following you. You don't panic. You were trained for this. You take 4 detours, double back twice, and lose them near the Beltway. You deliver the scientist on time. You write your report. Cecil reads it in 40 seconds and says, "Faster next time." You think about pointing out that you lost a tail at rush hour in DC traffic with no backup. You don't point that out. You write, "Understood." Week 3. Cecil calls you at 2 a.m. You answer on the first ring because you learned on day 1 that Cecil doesn't call twice. He needs you at a location in 12 minutes. You don't ask questions. You dress in 4 minutes, get in the black SUV, and make it there in 11. The location is a parking garage in Arlington. Cecil is already there, hands behind his back, looking at nothing. There is a man zip-tied to a support column. You don't recognize him. Cecil tells you this man has been selling information about GDA operations to a competitor, not a foreign government, which would be straightforward, but a private organization with resources and no accountability. Cecil tells you to handle the debrief. He hands you a folder. He leaves. You look at the folder. You look at the man zip-tied to the column. You look at the folder again. The man says, "Who are you?" You say, "I'm the one asking questions tonight." You have no idea where that came from, but it worked. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you about working directly under Cecil Stedman. The job is not dangerous in the way you expected. You expected firefights, alien threats, things with tentacles. You get those sometimes, more than you'd like, but mostly the job is information, moving it, protecting it, verifying it, bearing it. You developed a system in month 2. When you learn something that would keep a normal person up at night, and in this job that's roughly 4 times a week, you write it in your mental ledger, file it, and close the drawer. You are very good at closing drawers. Cecil noticed this about you within the first month. He has never complimented you on it directly. But once, when briefing you on something particularly bad, he paused and said, "You're not going to fall apart on me, are you?" It wasn't really a question. You said no. He nodded and continued the briefing. That was the closest Cecil Stedman has come to expressing confidence in you, and you've been running on it for 8 months. Month 2. The Guardians of the Globe are involved in a situation in Colorado. Invincible is handling the main threat. Your job is crowd control on the perimeter, not the civilians, the media. There are 17 news vans within a half-mile radius, and each of them has a camera pointed at something Cecil doesn't want on television. You spend 4 hours coordinating with local law enforcement, feeding them cover stories, managing a journalist who somehow got through the inner cordon, and fielding 17 separate calls from your supervisor, who is relaying Cecil's real-time instructions through an earpiece that keeps cutting out. At one point, you are simultaneously managing a police lieutenant, a very persistent reporter, and a call from Cecil himself, who wants to know why there's a live feed from one of the news vans showing something in the background that shouldn't be visible. You solve all 3 problems in under 3 minutes. You don't know how. Your body just figured it out while your brain was still panicking. After the situation is resolved, Cecil's assistant Donald tells you Cecil watched the footage of you handling the perimeter. You ask what Cecil said. Donald thinks about it for a second. He says, "Cecil said, 'You'll do.'" From Cecil Stedman, that's basically a standing ovation. Month 4. Things get complicated. Cecil gives you access to a new level of classified information, the stuff about the Viltrumite infiltration program, the breeding program, the reason Omni-Man was really on Earth, the reason Mark Grayson is who he is. You sit in a windowless room and read files for 3 hours, and when you come out, you look at the world slightly differently. You now know that for years, the most powerful being on the planet was secretly an advanced scout for an alien empire, that the government knew something was off and made a calculated decision to use him anyway, and that the man who made that decision is your boss. You go back to your desk. The light is still flickering. You sit under it for a while. Then you open your laptop and start your next assignment. You are very good at closing drawers. Month 6. Your first real threat. Not a debrief in a parking garage. Not crowd management. Something actually coming at you specifically. A reaniman, one of D.A. Sinclair's creations, a reanimated corpse rebuilt with cybernetic enhancements that Cecil technically employs because apparently that's just a thing the GDA does. Malfunctions during a transport and turns on the nearest available target, which is you, in a corridor, alone, with a badge and a sidearm and exactly the same amount of superpowers as a regular person, which is 0. You do 3 things in the next 40 seconds. You use the sidearm. It doesn't stop the reaniman. Nothing in your training covered what to do when your target literally does not feel the shots. You use the corridor environment, a fire door, a storage cart, basic geometry. That slows it down. Then you hit the emergency override on your badge that you've never had to use before, sealing the corridor section and triggering a containment response. The whole thing takes 40 seconds. You are breathing very hard when Cecil arrives 12 minutes later with the containment team. He looks at the secured corridor. He looks at you. He looks at your sidearm, which you are still holding because you forgot to put it away. He says, "Write the report tonight. I want it before morning." You say, "Yes, sir." He almost says something else. He doesn't. He turns and walks away. Month 8. Cecil calls you into his actual office. Not the corridor, not a parking garage, not a crisis location. His office. You've been in it twice before. Both times were bad news. This time he's sitting behind the desk, and there are 2 folders in front of him, and he's looking at you with that expression he has, where you can't tell if he's about to fire you or promote you, or tell you something that will structurally alter your understanding of reality. He tells you there's a situation developing. Not a crisis yet. Cecil distinguishes carefully between situations and crises. A situation is something you can still shape. A crisis is something you're already inside. He says Viltrumites are coming to Earth, not to fight, to stay. He says the GDA needs to be ready in ways it currently isn't, and readiness requires people at every level of the operation who can function under pressure without needing a superhero to hold their hand. He pushes both folders across the desk. He says, "Pick one." You look at the folders. They don't have labels. Of course they don't. You pick the one on the left. He nods. He says you'll be briefed tomorrow. He says, "Don't be late." You stand up. You're almost at the door when he says one more thing. He says, "You handled the reaniman well." You stop. You don't turn around because you're not sure what expression your face is making, and you don't want him to see it. You say, "Thank you." You walk out. The door closes behind you. You stand in the corridor for a second. The fluorescent light above you is finally fixed. You didn't notice until just now. You are nobody special. No powers, no cape, no origin story. Just a person who is very good at closing drawers and answering on the first ring and showing up 11 minutes into a 12-minute window and asking the right questions in a parking garage at 2 a.m. Cecil Stedman saves the world through a network of calculated decisions, and you are one of them. That's not a small thing. That's the whole thing. Your phone rings. First ring, you answer. Cecil says, "There's a situation. you're already in the car.